Hello, faithful listeners. My name is Clay Thompson, and I'll be your guide in the fiction room. Today's prompt comes to us from username sdrick.
Is it true that you can only see 3 basic colors?
The alien being asked. It is.
So how do you communicate with the Gusha?
With whom? I responded, confused.
The other major race on your planet.
As always, I hope you'll enjoy listening to these stories as much as I enjoy reading them. But without further ado, let us begin with our first story, written by Strawberry Cocoa. Gusha, I said, tilting my head a bit. Who are they? The alien looked at me strangely. I had difficulty reading his expression. He was almost entirely human in appearance, with angular features and an air of delicacy and grace. The only thing that would separate him visually from a human were his ears. They were long and tapered to a point, sticking out somewhat from his long, flowing hair. But despite visual similarities to a human, his expression and body language were impossible to read, impassive and imperious, utterly devoid of any movement that wasn't mediated and pondered. He spoke neutrally and flatly.
The Gusha, the lords of the sky.
I could only shake my head in ignorance. Who or what was a Gusha? I'm unfamiliar with that word.
So the red, green, blue is accurate then? You do not have Psyre cones in your eyes?
I have no idea what... Sire? Sire? I have no idea what that is.
A pity,
the alien said, gesturing beside him.
Because a representative of the Gusha stands before you.
I looked to the side of him and saw only empty air. Is this a joke?
Hardly.
A snide tone slipped into the alien's voice, his posture subtly shifting to a haughty loom.
Gusha are about 12 inches tall, shaped bipedally like you and I, with Psyre skin and Njol hair. They have 2 diaphanous Syavi wings and communicate by glowing in a variety of colors.
I don't know what Sire, Knee Oil, and Syavi are.
I suppose not.
The alien sighed resignedly.
You would need Psyre cones to see the other colors that happen when you mix red, blue, and green with them. A pity.
He held his chin a moment in consideration.
What about the Sept, the Tintari?
I could feel my face getting hot. I don't know those words either. The alien's expression grew... I think it was cold.
The lords of magma and sea. You don't know them either?
I slammed the table. Look, mister, whatever your name is, if you wish to open contact with our world, you are going to have to stop with these juvenile pranks. There are no people living on this planet by any of those names.
Reopen contact, you mean?
The alien said, not missing a beat.
And my name is Edwin. We used to share this world with men before you left to cross the western sky, but it seems men have forgotten much of their own people's past.
In the empty space to Edwin's right, a burst of color suddenly flared into existence. Brilliant pinks and yellows. There were brief gaps of nothing, what seemed to be holes in the light. I fell into my chair, mouth hanging open. What was that?
That was my Gusha friend, making a considerable effort to speak in red, green, blue spectra for your convenience. A terrible strain on them. I do hope you appreciate it.
Edwin settled into his chair, grinning knowingly.
He was simply reminding me that Gusha, Sept, and Tintari are not the words you would know these people by.
Edwin's grin grew wider, as if coming to the long-anticipated punchline of a joke.
Gusha, fairy. Sept, dwarf, Tintari, mermaid, and Ilian, he tapped the points of his tapered ears briefly, elf. Now maybe you remember?
This one was pretty unique because instead of going the classic sci-fi route with this kind of story, instead they managed to integrate fantasy into it. So that's a very nice subversion of expectations. Very nicely done. And now let's move on to our second story, written by R. DeLonra. You'd have to repeat that, I say, taking a sip from my flask, never letting my gaze leave the three glowing eyes of the chitinous creature before me. I may only be a petty officer and translation specialist, but even I would know of a second dominant species on my home world.
They call themselves the Gusha,
it chatters, oversized mandibles mangling the words.
They are what govern the rules of your society, the great creatures that exist in the plane of the fundament, the beings that have guarded and coached your people from a realm beyond all understanding, the realm of the eighth color.
Nope, sorry. I sigh. Poor guy must have had his data come from some deluded, post-singularity parascience cult. An all too common occurrence given his race's inability to tell fact from fiction. There are no other life forms on Sol 3 that humanity has not already cataloged and analyzed. Our technology has allowed us to access dimensions 1 to 9. We have a presence across a staggering 6% of space-time, thanks to Project Hawking and the Firefly Initiative. But I have no clue what in the blazes you're on about.
Then how do you explain the Grand Gap?
The what now?
How your civilization went from no interplanetary travel to interstellar in 1,000 years. How you all did the unthinkable by making translators that revolutionized diplomacy. How you can simulate everything you want just by talking to that tiny screen.
The creature is getting more and more agitated by the second, its many limbs twitching and writhing as it spoke, one enormous claw piercing the desk next to my holotablet. Oh, it finally clicks. You guys don't have AI. Sort of reminds me of an FBI guy in Area 51 talking to this alien, and he's warning them about this Gusha, and it's just not clicking. This is something that I think would really happen if humans came in contact with aliens, so props and points for realism. And now let's move on to our final story, written by Stormy Geddon.
Is it true you can only see 3 basic colors?
The alien being asked. Just about. Our eyes have about 3 primary colors perceived by the cones in our eyes, and most of the colors we perceive on what we call the visible spectrum are a mixture of yellow, red, and blue.
So how do you communicate with the Gusha?
With whom? I responded, confused.
The other major race on your planet.
I wasn't aware of any other such intelligent race.
But you keep care of Gusha ambassadors in major cities. Surely you have established a means of communication. You have hundreds of humans meeting with them every day. When we arrived, we spoke to them first. They welcomed us to your planet with a spectacular display of dazzling colors and welcoming patterns, as well as a 3-hour-long dance of peace.
Care to describe where these ambassadors are? The alien fiddled with their glowing tablet for a minute, and then responded,
My computer tells me that even within the borders of this country, there are ambassadors in the locations you would call Gulfport, Mississippi, Orlando, Florida, Indianapolis, and San Diego, California.
There must be some kind of mistake. Those are not major capitals of the U.S. Would you care to describe what the Gusha look like?
They are distantly related to the Homo sapiens, a different order but the same class of mammalia. Unlike the fingers you have, they have pectoral flippers and a tail fin for propulsion. The Gusha told me that humans have an understanding where they are allowed to occasionally visit their domain of over 71% of the surface of the planet for the purposes of sharing food and using transportation.
Wait a minute. Flippers. Do they have a breathing hole on their back?
Yes. They also use the surface of their skin on their back to relay messages and communicate on top of regular verbal singing. We thought you humans were the same, as you have stripes and spots on your skin, and also use unusual singing and verbal communication.
Flippers, blowholes in a few cities, making performances. Are you talking about dolphins? The alien once again checked their tablet.
Correct. Although we are aware they do not like being called that.
But humans don't have stripes. And last I saw them, which granted was when I was a teenager, dolphins don't change color.
Do you not use camera to translate their performances? What colors do you see the Gusha as?
I don't know, like a solid gray, I'd say? The alien looked perplexed, then twisted their tablet around to face me.
Would you care to tell me what you see on my screen?
Looks like a solid white to me.
There is so much more to the spectrum that you have been missing.
I'm greatly reminded of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where "so long and thanks for all the fish" comes into play with the dolphins being these hyper-intelligent beings, so thank you for the nostalgia, and very nicely done on this story as well. And now, dear listeners, we must unfortunately bid you farewell once again. Thank you all for tuning into the Fiction Room. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please consider leaving a like, a comment, and subscribing to the channel. It would really help us. But for now, wherever you are in the world, be safe, be well, and we'll see all of you next time.